Hello and welcome to the Big Idea Session. My name is Sean Bonnell. I'm a Client Success Manager with StoreForce. And joining me today on stage in just a moment are two talented, amazing leaders. And we're going to be talking to you about labor planning that can improve your stores every day. Now, if labor planning, those words has piqued your interest, I'm not surprised. You are at a retail conference. Perhaps you're looking for a solution or ideas around labor planning for retail. That equally is not surprising. It's probably one of the top 3 priorities for any retailer. How do you continue to maximize the return on your investments for the labors you're putting into your stores? Here's a few questions I guess you could ask yourself if you're getting the most from it. Do you have real-time insights to your store's performance that allows you to understand how they're currently scheduling? With the annual rising labor costs, are you sure you're getting the best return on your ROI? And can you truly quantify the quality of the schedules that are being written in your stores? Now, I don't just mean that they spent the hours you provided. That we can report on. No, I mean, were the hours you gave them put to the most effective use in that store? So often we hear retailers that don't have that insider ability. We work so hard on a labor plan to give them to our stores, but not truly have the analytics that we need to understand if it's giving us the return that we need. So who is StoreForce to be able to give you these insights or these ideas? Well, first, we're an all-in-one, let me find my clicker, an all-in-one retail solution specifically designed for specialty retail. Now, that's an important distinction. What is specialty retail? It's where that interaction between your associate and the customer is paramount to your brand experience. All the more reason why labor planning was so important for these retailers. Right person, right place, right time. I'm sure many of you have traveled globally to come here looking for a solution that might work in your country. We're equally worldwide. We have the ability to work in any country and help solve solutions for you. Our tool is able to meet your labor standards based on each country, so you can ensure not only are you getting a quality scheduling, but you're also meeting the legal requirements of each country's labor laws. And clients that do implement with us, they look forward to increased sales. We see up to 15% increase in sales for clients that implement. Now, a point of pride we take as StoreForce is that our implementation can be quick and efficient and can be in your store's hands with just 8 weeks. So you can be focused on driving your business and not logistics taking time away from that. Speaking of retailers, here's just a short list of retailers that we currently work with. And we take great pride that many of these retailers have been with us over our 15 years in business, being a part of our journey and our growth. Now, when they came to us, they came to solve very real business problems that were important to them. And we showed them our all-in-one tool to be able to help them find the ways to solve for those problems. So what is the all-in-one tool? Well, at the core of our tool, we are target management. We'll take your targets as well as your historical data. We'll match that to our methodology to be able to create targets across all KPIs and all time periods within your stores. The foundation of our tool is on 4 pillars. 4 pillars of retail. One is your performance. We provide real-time insights to your performance across all KPIs. And at the store level, this means that your managers can see exactly how they're doing right now today so they can coach and guide your team to be more effective in the right behavior they need. As field leaders, you have access via a mobile device or the application itself to be able to see this across your whole hierarchy in your fleet. As well as we have the ability to push reports, custom reports to the KPIs that you want to make sure you're focused on the priorities of your business. And we know there's a lot more to just selling to our customers. There's a lot of logistics that go on behind the scenes. We have an execution tool that allows you not only to plan, track, execute, and report on all of the tasks that need to complete it in your store. Because if it's a task, it means there's labor being invested. So you want to make sure you have the insights to how much effort is being put to that so you can make sure you're spending as little time as possible, done quality, but putting the rest of your hours back to your customers. And in this modern world, we have mobile devices. Our employees like to be engaged wherever they are. We have a mobile platform that allows you to share information and engage with your employees in many ways. The obvious is their schedule, updating their availability, be able to swap shifts, as well as do communication with you through discussion boards, do surveys and forms. And the fourth pillar, bringing us back to the topic of this conversation, is workforce management. Again, we'll take your targets and your historical data, and we will suggest where ideally your hours can be best used to get the most out of them. We'll be able to recommend coverage for you. We'll also auto-generate the schedule, saving time from a manager, pen to paper, or Excel, creating the tool for them, aligning availabilities and qualifications to the appropriate shifts so that you can have effective schedules across all of your stores. And at the field level, we have ample reporting that allows you to analyze and understand the quality of your stores. And are you getting the most out of it from any one location to the next, that you can have quality schedules? Now, it's one thing to hear me talk about StoreForce. It's something else to hear from clients that are using it directly, who are solving their very real business problems, and how StoreForce has been a part of that. So with that in mind, I'd like to welcome to the stage Kevin Rogers, Director of Operations for Knix, and Noor Shehabelden, Director of Operations for Steve Madden. Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
Everyone's mic is working?
Test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, great.
Test.
We can feel like rock stars. 1, 2, check. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. A big part of StoreForce culture is community, where our clients are able to talk to each other and learn and grow so that everyone can be successful. So I appreciate you joining me here so we can extend our community to our NRF group here. Now, I shared just a moment ago that retailers come to StoreForce when they're looking to solve very real business problems. I'd love to maybe start with them just hearing from each of you a little bit about your business and what was your reason or your need when you looked to partner with StoreForce. And Nora, maybe we'll start here.
We were looking to optimize scheduling in our stores. We were using Excel spreadsheets, as you had mentioned, and that was taking a lot of time from the sales floor. We wanted to make sure that we had our employees on the floor when there were customers, and so our previous vice president had previously used StoreForce, and she introduced it to us.
Thank you. And Kevin?
Yeah, so I had worked with StoreForce previously in 2 other companies. So when I joined Knix about 7 months ago, I looked at what they were using, and it wasn't Excel, but it was an equivalent to Excel. It really didn't do too much other than we just did a schedule to do a schedule. So having my experience with StoreForce in the past, I quickly identified that's the first phone call I need to make. We need to get a top-of-the-line platform so that we can optimize scheduling, because we just wanted to get the right people in the right place at the right time so that we can grow our sales.
I appreciate that. And obviously, having used it, there's the benefit. But I suspect, even in your new business, change management to help implement a tool is so critical. You can have a great solution, but if the culture's not on board or it's not adopted, it goes nowhere. So I'm wondering, how did you go about sharing this and guiding your team to change? You had mentioned once before when we talked how it can be very emotional for leaders, very personal from the right schedules. And I'm wondering, how did you help guide them to show that this new tool, which maybe felt like it was restrictions, was actually helping?
Well, we adapted an in-person training solution. We had managers come in from our top volume stores. We wanted them to really adapt to and believe in the program, because we believe that they could influence their employees to trust in what we were rolling out to them.
I appreciate that. And Kevin, I know you're also rolling this out too. How was that to guide your team?
So we had anticipated there'd be a lot of change, a lot of people saying, I think I know better. We didn't actually have that. We actually had people excited. When you have something that's an equivalent to Excel, getting a system like StoreForce coming in, they were excited. And I'd say about 1/3 of our store managers have used StoreForce in the past. So they were asking for a better solution. They were wanting a solution like StoreForce. So when we shared that we were going to go into this platform, there wasn't hesitation, there was excitement. And the people who didn't have never used StoreForce really fed off those leaders that had used it, took the recommendation, and got really excited about where Knix was going with StoreForce.
I appreciate that. Often when I've worked with the clients, we're worried about the store level, but I've often found store leaders who are business owners themselves are actually excited to have a tool that allows them to move forward and take advantage of the data that they have. We know that at StoreForce, a primary part of our schedule is to help match your staff to your customers. And we've talked about Excel, but I'm interested in the journey and what you noticed from moving from Excel to StoreForce. How did that change, and how did you find the quality schedules have changed?
So our stores took some time to adapt to this. At first, they really believed that they knew better than the program. They were like, I live in this store, I know my traffic, I know what employees need to be where. And then once we rolled it out, they actually saw the benefit behind it and, started to trust in the program.
What do you think some of the benefits were? Did anything stand out to them that they noticed was different from what they were doing before?
Well, I think it was the time in building the schedule. As you said, it can recommend coverage, it can auto-generate the schedule. It went from almost a 2 to 3 hour task to being done in less than 45 minutes.
And just that alone, that's a high-paid person in your store, a manager, spending 2 hours on a process that you've just maximized. I think sometimes the return on investment of that alone is product moving you forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Kevin, how about you? Any thoughts on how that transition and how the team has felt has made the improvements?
Yeah, so very similar story to Nora is the I know better because I've been doing it for a long time. My schedule is better than StoreForce. So it reminded me of a story from my previous retailer where we had a store manager that said, I know better. So we already had implemented StoreForce and they were not following Recommender. They were not following what StoreForce brought to the table. So I challenged them and I said, do it the StoreForce way, follow their recommendations for 2 weeks, and let's see where it lands. After only 1 week, that store leader said, I've seen conversion go up, I've seen AOV go up, I'm never doing it my way again.
Stop. We'll stop right there. But that's
Sorry.
true. We do see where stores that can schedule to where the traffic is and really put the hours where it is, they outperform the stores that don't. So that's a great insight. A question for you. We obviously take all your historical data and we help to build schedules, and we in turn provide that data back in robust reporting and analytics. I'm wondering if you felt that you've seen an improvement in the business acumen of your leaders who are maybe doing it emotionally based or based on their own concept. Do you find that it's helped to elevate or add to their acumen?
I think it has elevated their business acumen, mainly because they only know what they know. They're not really able to connect the dots for real-time insights. Some of the benefits of StoreForce is the reporting. One of my favorite reports is the peak traffic report. And what that does is it identifies your top 20 open hours, which is 50% of your week. So by looking at where they're putting the right people in, they're looking at variables like TPLH, they can actually then understand what's happening on the floor that are driving the results and ultimately driving their business acumen and their knowledge of what they're trying to drive. Instead of just working really hard, now they're working really smart and getting better results.
I love that. And you heard Kevin there quote something from a StoreForce budget, is just to say to any retailer, 50% of your traffic is happening in 20 hours. Are you sure your schedules are matching that? Nora, I'd love to get your thoughts on that and the acumen of your leaders.
I think that, in the same respect as Kevin, the peak traffic has been the biggest insight for our stores. They never really knew where the traffic was, and having it just presented to them, through the color coding that's on the website, it has really opened their eyes to where they need to be on the sales floor.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We all know in retail we set targets, but if we're not performing to trend, we may need to forecast or we need our stores to adjust. How do you go about reforecasting, and what role do the stores have in that? Nora?
So we rolled out the reforecasting tool right before the holidays. It's built into the program, and it has really given them the ability to understand how to manipulate their schedule when they're not on target. In the past, they would use their intuition to cut some hours. So midweek they'd be like, "I'm going to remove these 4 hours on a Saturday," which was probably the worst time for them to cut hours. But that's when they thought, "Oh, I have too many people, so this is where I can trim." By using the reforecasting tool, it gives them, the insight where to cut those hours so that it doesn't affect the business.
Yeah. Kevin, I know you had shared a thought on that prior. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so we look at trends a lot in trying to see where the trending of the business is going. And through StoreForce reporting, you can identify where your business is trending. And if you're trending down, we actually are able to say what minimum hours can we go on? Or if we're trending up, where could we push more hours in? So we know with what we were talking about with the peak segments that we can put more hours in there and we're gonna be able to get an investment that way. So we really are looking at trends and then seeing where we should put our hours and then where we should invest.
Yeah, so it sounds like a much more awareness to where ideally we can make those and not kind of crystal balling it. I'm wondering, Nora, if you could share, based on the time you've had with it, specifically in terms of scheduling to your customers, what have been any of the positive impacts, be it results, be it NPS, or just general improvements in process? What would you share you've achieved so far?
We've seen a lift in our conversion overall. Using the StoreForce dashboard, a lot of our conversation on the sales floor is based around that. Everything is color coded. So we now on the sales floor talk about going into the green so that we can stay in the positive zone. And when our colors shift into yellow or to red, we just pivot back to that conversation to push our metrics.
Yeah. And when we're talking about the colors changing, our dashboard is set up very intuitively that the KPIs that you prioritize, be it conversion or average basket, where it's not achieving target, it'll change colors, making it very obvious for anybody to see if they're achieving or where to focus their efforts on. So I appreciate that. Oh, sorry. Loud breath. I'd love to get your thoughts. One of the things we notice when we work with different clients is their approach to labor planning and their methodology is very unique. I'd love to hear, what is your methodology? Many clients use wage percent or a TPLH. What is your methodology and how do you go about it?
We use sales per hour. So we have a sales per hour matrix, and so hours are granted to stores based on their weekly volume.
Okay. And Kevin, does it vary?
Yeah, we look at wage percent, so we know where we want to be. And what we learned over, I'd say even during my time here, is we used to just work at a certain number, and that's where we wanted to do. However, understanding now, we need to go. Let me just gather my thought here. So we just need to get. We need to go a little bit lower at times, right? Like, what would be the minimum amount of hours we would need for a lower volume store so that we can invest in the other time? So it's not about just being in a certain percent every single month, but how does it fluctuate and when do we know we can get the biggest bang for our buck in terms of where we should invest our dollars?
I appreciate that. Just like traffic fluctuates, you want to change the where you're investing. And if everything is flat, flat schedules don't usually give us what we need.
Yeah.
Have you found, in terms of the way you schedule, very often what we hear from clients is they have total hours, it's selling. But as we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of operational work, execution work that has to get done. That requires labor hours. How do you go about approaching your selling versus your non-selling?
So this was new for us, especially since we just gave them a bucket of hours. They were putting them into the spreadsheet. So once we adapted StoreForce, we sort of used this 80-20 rule. So 80% of the hours that they're granted each week are devoted to the sales floor and 20% are devoted to non-selling. And this way, they have the ability to schedule someone who can prioritize on tasks rather than trying to move back and forth from selling and tasking. And so they could spend more time on the sales floor or focusing on customers as they come in.
And how was that going prior? Were they just identifying it or was it just selling and they just figured it out?
It was just selling and they figured it out. So if they had a moment of downtime, they would run to do the task, which obviously would never complete a task because as soon as customers came back into the store, they would have to go back to the sales floor. And so it was just a strenuous for the stores.
And I imagine in that prior approach, you didn't have analytics or data to know how much. Maybe it was 70-30 or higher in how the split was.
Yeah, absolutely. They spent so much more time tasking in the past, and which they have realized now that we've implemented the StoreForce.
Yeah, very often I think we can see at a store level, yes, they know sales are important, but they also see the boxes and the tasks that have to happen, and that takes precedent at times, and then our labor is not going to where it might need to be. Kevin, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know with your setup, we're looking at non-selling activities, so you're being very detailed in how you're planning.
I think it's important to be prescriptive because before we were giving them a certain amount of hours and they were using the hours and they were deciding what they needed to do. So now we're being more prescriptive in terms of we want to know exactly what hours are being used for selling so that we can drive sales. And then looking at the other activities, whether it's just opening and close, whether it's cycle counting, whether it's inventory, all of those other activities, we can now prescribe to those hours. We still got to roll up to the total hours. That's important. But it's really important for us to know what activities are taking place, how they're taking place, and then we can look at a true TPLH to see, are we leaving money on the table? And sometimes putting too much hours into selling can hurt you as well. So by really having that understanding of knowing what's the right balance per location so that we can ultimately have the right amount of labor in place and then drive the highest amount of sales we possibly can.
I appreciated your comment about too much selling hours, and that may sound weird, but if we put too much resources where there's not demand, then it's really not an effective use of those hours. Nora, we had talked once before about available capacity, and I'd love to get your thoughts. Available capacity, where we overschedule, where the demand isn't there, our system will actually inform you about that. It'll let you know that you have available resources to be able to use for tasking. So perhaps you're a retailer that doesn't do non-selling planning. We can still give you insights that can guide you at the effective use of that. I'd love to get your thoughts on maybe how you've leveraged available capacity.
I mean, I think the stores didn't realize before how many employees they were putting on the sales floor at any given point in time. And so there was just, and as a commission-based company, there was always this struggle of who's going to get to the customer. And so now with our model, it has become much easier for them on the sales floor and to focus on their own customers.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Kevin, any thoughts on that?
I think in particular, it's been really good to have a better understanding of zoning and where people are and where the customer flow is happening within the store as well. And I think I can take us back to 2020, 2021, where we restricted the amount of people that could come in. So we were able to play with that available capacity and understand exactly where we can, sorry, I just lost my train of thought, but just to really know where people are shopping and how we can leverage that in order to drive sales ultimately.
Yeah, we were talking about peak before, and I know you both mentioned the value that is, and our ability to use your historic traffic to suggest where your hours are. Our accuracy of that is incredibly high, which means we equally know when you're not busy. So you can trust in the information to know where to task and where to prioritize your efforts to your customers. One of the things we often hear with clients when they're looking at their labor planning is just to get the data is a challenge. I have to go get my traffic provider to give me all the insights. I got to go pull from my POS. I need to pull all my data from my workday. I then need to get someone to put that together in a spreadsheet. Even before we get to making any informed decisions of our business, I'm wondering how you have found the reporting that StoreForce has enabled or changed that process for you.
Well, here's the thing, is sometimes you don't have access to everything prior to StoreForce. So I would need to reach out to someone on the data team, or you need to reach out to multiple different people. And when I'm in that headspace of, I need to get everything now so I can understand how to drive my business, it was a challenge because by the time those people had the time to get you that data, you were out of that headspace and you couldn't really get done what you need to get done. With StoreForce, it's all there. You can have the predefined reports that StoreForce has, or you can customize your own reports. And now all the data's in one place. When I'm in that headspace, when I'm ready to do whatever I need to do, I can pull that data, do what I need to do with that data, and ultimately get done my job quicker than I would be chasing it down.
I appreciate that, chasing data as opposed to making informed decisions through it.
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting. Nor any thoughts on how it's evolved for you?
I mean, we did give the stores access to the data. It's just, it was in so many different places. They would go to the POS, they would have to go to the back office to log into the traffic counter dashboard. And so now having everything in one central location, they don't have to scramble across the store to get a read-in, which was something that we used to do. And now with StoreForce's access to the executive field members, that takes away another task from them because everything is available to their fingertips through your hierarchy on the platform.
You really hit on something for me. At our booth, I was having a conversation earlier today with a lady, and she had mentioned her stores have over 10 different applications they need to have access to get information. And that's not even putting it in a presentable way. So when we add up the time that invests simply to be able to see it in real time, to be able to make informed decisions. You had mentioned earlier about the dashboard. We certainly have dashboards and reporting that's available at a field level. What KPIs are most important to you? And that may vary for each of you, but what's most important that you need to look at in your business?
We really focus on conversion and on UPT. Both of those are on the dashboard, and it just obviously they affect the other metrics that are on the dashboard as well. But those are our main priorities, and so it helps them focus on what behaviors they need to change in the moment on the sales floor.
Yeah, Kevin.
For us, it's conversion and AOV in particular. And what I love about the color-coded dashboard is you can really have an understanding of which lever you need to pull. And then also we can build something into the background so that for junior associates, they can actually tell you if you're green in conversion and red in AOV, exactly what behaviors you need to do to drive the other metrics so that you have a fully green dashboard.
I appreciate that. Now, we're talking about data, and data always feels like it's important, but if you have a fire hose at you of information, how do you make a choice? I just like a black coffee. I don't know how to make a broader decision of what else goes into it. I'm wondering how you have found the ability, because it's user controlled, to focus that lens for your stores on what priorities are important for them. How have you found the ability to custom your reports to shape the narrative for your stores?
There was a lot of reports in the StoreForce arsenal, and there are some things that we never really focused on before, like segment success. And being a great MOD is something that we talk about often. So we've been able to leverage these tools to have them focus on being great managers in the moment. And, they're automated. They don't have to run the report themselves. And so that has really taken a lot of time that they spent on reporting when everything is just accessible right to them.
I love that you said time, because that's labor. And you've mentioned several times just the efficiencies around the leadership. Have you found that the scheduling as a whole has enabled, say, assistant managers or other leaders to be just as effective when the store manager is not present?
I think for all managers on the sales floor, they've realized, that they can be on the floor more when everything is done for them. We also used to build like a daily goal sheet, but that's all built into the at a glance. And so everything is right at their fingertips, right at the start of their day.
Yeah, and Kevin, I'd love to get your thoughts on being able to focus the narrative for your stores.
Yeah, there's a ton of reports within StoreForce, so I think it's important at my level to determine what's really going to drive the results. So we look at peak traffic report, as I mentioned earlier, because I think that's so important. We have a saying, make peak, make your week. So that one's really important. Then you look at another report like the missed opportunities report. So that one really lets you look at how you can drive conversion. And by looking at that, where are those missed transactions, AKA customers, during those other days. So then you can really look at your schedule and say, where could I have dropped the ball? What can I do to be more effective? So it's not just around making your Saturday, it's really around making every day in that report by then taking it back to labor and saying, was I most effective? Yeah. Looking at TPLH and saying, where could I have been better? It really makes the store managers think, and I think those types of reports are important. If we gave them everything, we wouldn't be able to streamline exactly what we want them looking at.
I agree. If you're looking at everything, you're looking at nothing. How do we focus on that? I think one of the things I've enjoyed, you can maybe validate, is it's not just a depository of data. It's presented back in a compelling way as to help inform and make decisions. You had just talked about the dashboard, how it lights up, or how they can make informed decisions. Do you feel that it's guiding your leaders to make stronger decisions of their business?
Yeah, I think it does, mainly because if you think about labor scheduling, it was done on emotion, right? So it was, I think that this is what's right for the business, and they generally believe it. But then with StoreForce labor planning, it really makes them think differently. It really allows them to put out what they feel is the best schedule, and then have the opportunity to not only look ahead, but to look back and say, was it right? And how could I even still be more effective? And that's the beauty of the StoreForce application, is you keep learning, and it's continuous learning to have the best schedule. Because if you have the right talent and you have the right people in the right place at the right time, it's I know it's an old saying, but it's hard to do. But you need a tool that's going to be able to help you do that. And when you do that, the results are going to grow.
I appreciate that. You both have multiple locations, continuing to grow and expand. I think it's safe to say not all locations are the same. Some are in New York and busy, and some are in different places. How do you go about planning and accounting for those nuances or unique attributes from stores? How do you make sure you're meeting, we're not doing a cookie cutter, but you're giving each store the proper insights that they need?
Not all stores are created equal. I think we know that. So I think we look at it from mall stores, street front stores, outlets. My previous life, we were looking at transit. You need to look and compare apples to apples. You can't compare a top volume store in a high traffic mall to a low volume street front store. You just can't do that. So what we do at Knix is we look at it into those three categories and then compare within that category so that we can actually see where, who's at the top and who's not, and where they should be. It also allows us to look and say, no one's at the top. And because we know what the base is. So how do we then look at each of these stores within their cluster and then have them drive up? But typically we will see a good percentage at the top, and we know where the baseline is. So how many can we get over the line?
Yeah. Nora, any thoughts to how you look at your stores?
I'd say we have a very similar approach. We have the same buckets for our stores. And so by using, the historical data that's built into the platform, we have the same ability to group them together so that we could, make sure they're performing as we want them.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we have the capacity to look at attributes, be it 2 entrances or 2 floors. You can create identifiers by location, so you can run reports specifically on street fronts or mall front stores and be able to see the performance by the different attributes that they have. Here's a question. Have you ever wanted to reduce labor? That's rhetorical. When you're making your labor plans and you're accounting for changes in your business, how do you currently go about deciding where you make decisions to cut or add hours or redeploy, especially knowing how precious that resource is?
I think it's important to look at what a minimum just to run, right? I think it's important to look at that so you have a base, because if the base goes lower than you want it to be, you still need people to open the door. You still need people on there. So what's your base within your store? And then really how high is high in terms of that? So I think once you've built your base, then you can say, okay, now in higher volume stores, where can I go? And I also look at TPLH, because that's a huge indicator to say, are we able to get to every customer? If you can't get to every customer, you're leaving money on the table. So I think we look at where's the minimum, and sometimes you got to be in a minimum. We're in January after Christmas. People are back to normal. They're not necessarily shopping with us. Where's our base? But then you can also look at peak times. Like for us in the summer is huge. Holiday is huge for everybody. So then where can we really invest into those, not only the peak times, but then to really put more hours that way? And again, looking at TPLH as a measuring stick.
I appreciate that. Nora, any other approach you have?
I think that by using the reforecasting tool as well, knowing that they could buy in from the minimum or gain additional hours with every 1,000 hours that, they increase over their trend, they can add their hours, and having that tool show them where they need to schedule has been really good for them.
I appreciate you saying that. So we have the ability of reforecasting in existing schedules or schedules that are coming up. We equally have an ability, Kevin, you talked about TPLH. and nor if I heard you correctly, you do your planning by SBH. We have a labor banding tool that actually allows you to look at the performance of your stores by your critical KPI and how you measure that. And you get to see, we'll actually suggest bandings and which stores are performing within those bands, which stores maybe should be increased with hours, where you might make some savings, helping that labor banding process. Again, data not just for data's sake, but offered in a compelling way to make informed decisions. I'm wondering if we can come full circle. We started with an original business problem that you were looking at to solve. And I'm hoping you might be able to share, based on the journey you've had so far, how do you feel you're making progress on that journey of solving it?
We're definitely still on the path to success with StoreForce. We have been with the platform for the last 6 months, and there's a lot of other tools that come with it that we plan on rolling out in the future. But I think we're making good progress.
I appreciate that. And Kevin?
Yeah, we're definitely still on the path. As I said, I've only been with Knix for 7 months, and the first phone call I was to StoreForce. So there was the time to be able to build it and get ready for the holiday season for StoreForce. So we're still on the path. But what's important to us is to have take advantage of the year we didn't have StoreForce, because I know from my past what StoreForce will do. So I look at double-digit comps this year and say, we're going to be able to get that because we're not comping StoreForce. So it's going to be able to allow us to really drive additional sales, because last year we were basically Excel. So I know that we're going to be in a better position in 2025 than we were at this time in 2024.
I appreciate that. And for everyone in our audience, if I were to leave you with things that you could take away from our conversation, whether you want to continue a conversation, is, are you analyzing your schedule patterns? You have those precious hours. Are you ensured that they are actually going to where your pattern is? We mentioned earlier, 50% of your traffic is happening in 20 hours. Do you know where that is for each of your stores? We talked a lot about selling and non-selling. So often we see retailers just provide total hours and leave the split or the decision to go to the stores. It is important to understand how that's done. You might be missing out on great insights that help guide and inform, as we heard from our peers here. And using data to make better decisions. I had mentioned before, we're not just a depository of data. We offer it back to you in a compelling format that allows you to make informed decisions so that you can move your business forward. And while this conversation may be ending, we'd invite you to continue a conversation with us. You can come join us at our booth 1019. And with that, I'd like to thank our panelists for being up here and for you for investing the time to being present with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.